Hey, this is Andy Curran from Envy of None. Let's rock.
Thank you for being here. Welcome to Let's Rock.
Thank you for having me, man. Always up for rocking.
Yeah, and we did I don't know if you remember, but a few months ago we did an email interview.
Yes, we absolutely remember that one.
It was almost 20 questions, not quite 20 questions.
That's
almost.
Okay. Sometimes those ones are easier, Ken, because you can spend a little bit of time, crafting your idea. You're not put on the spot.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about them is I can't do any follow-up questions, which I really like doing. But congratulations on the new Envy of None album. It's a great sounding record.
Thank you, man. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's a very different, as we've sort of jokingly said, we should put a disclaimer on the front cover with the thing that says, warning, this is not Rush or Coney Hatch.
Well, that was the first thing I was going to mention to you, actually, is, when I first heard about this project, I knew it was going to be different. I knew it was not going to be Rush or Coney Hatch, but this is really different.
Yeah.
What was the mindset going into the writing of this stuff?
Yeah. Well, obviously, probably the biggest difference for Alex and I is we're both known, as rockers in the rock genre. But this one, I think I have to tell you that the mindset probably was started with the seed of the idea of Alex and I discussing our mutual admiration and love for soundtracks and movies, music behind movies or television, and talking about guys like Trevor Rabin and Mark Mothersbaugh and Danny Elfman and all of these great musicians that compose really cool music for film and television, and the boundary about how there's no real boundaries when you do that, when you write for film and television. We were sort of speculating how liberating that would be, because you're not really put in your box. You don't have to write a 4-minute rock song, or in Rush's case, a 9-minute rock song, right? But so there's a big, strong interest for both of us, and we started writing material that was instrumental in sharing it back and forth. And Alex was working on some stuff and called me up and asked me if I'd like to play bass on it, which I was honored, and immediately said to him, "Don't you know any other bass players? Isn't there a guy whose initials are GL that's on speed dial there, And he said, "No, I did a guy, Bass Andy. I want to, I would really appreciate if you replace my bass. I don't like it. Then maybe I can return the favor." So I stored that away. And when I had met Maiah Wynne through a series of events and started collaborating with Maiah remotely, sending her ideas that were very, ambient and electronic and sometimes a little bit industrial, or leaning towards maybe like an 80s or a 90s alternative new wave sound, I told Alex about it. I said, "Man, I've stumbled upon this really, really talented vocalist, and I would love you to hear it. And if you like it, would you be interested in playing guitar on it?" And that's kind of where Envy of None started. He heard it, instantly fell in love with her voice, as did Alf Annabellini, the fourth member of Envy of None. And, at that point, Ken, we were like, this is the nucleus of a project here. And that started the ride that eventually spawned the record, which will be out next week.
Next week? Yeah, that's right. April 8th, right?
Yeah.
I believe that's the date.
Yeah, a week and a half. Yep. I'm jumping the gun a bit.
So this is actually your baby.
Well, I say yes and no, but the seeds, like if you would say to me, Andy, where did these songs originate? I would say 70% of them came from my camp over to Alf. Then we shared them with Alex and Maiah. But Alex, in the latter stages of the project, he pulled out Spy House and Kabul Blues and Western Sunset, and we made those part of the Envy of None project. They were originally all instrumentals. And Maiah added some vocals onto that. And a song called Old Strings was one of Maia's songs that we kind of went in and I tore it apart and deconstructed it and turned it into a halftime. And so, but for the most part, to answer your question, yeah, it does feel a little bit like my baby, because Alf and I had been talking for a long time. Ken about writing and working with a young artist and going, let's supply them with some ideas and maybe see if we can cultivate someone's career and maybe help a younger artist. And this time around just happened to be Maiah Wynne.
Yeah, let's talk about her for a bit. She is unbelievable. That voice is just incredible.
Thank you for saying that, and I agree with you. And that's what kind of brought Alex in. Was the magnet. He was really, all of us were. Her for when we met her, she was 21 years old, and her grasp of melodies and harmonies and her lyrics that she was writing, she's well beyond. This is an old soul here. It felt like she'd been here before, but a very unique style. And the one thing I'll tell you is, as during this ride, and we very much feel like Maia's vocal are the icing on the cake for all of these songs. Like her, that she's the secret weapon. She's front and center on it. And as we were going along, there was a couple nastier songs like Enemy and Liar. And she would say to me, Andy, I feel like I should push a little bit more on this. I might want to redo my vocal. I might want to, it feels like it needs a yell or something. And I said, no. You keep doing what you're doing. Let us be nasty and you can be the nice juxtaposition. So you've got this beautiful, soft, wispy, evocative voice mixed in with all of these crazy musical overtones and soundscaping. And I think that's what makes Envy of None stand out a little bit more special. People say to me, Andy, what does this project sound like? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think it really sounds like anything out there right now. It's got hints of other, maybe other influences, like I mentioned to you, the industrial and the ambient stuff, but I think it's quite unique.
Very unique. Now let's talk about the other guys. You've mentioned Alf a couple times.
Yeah.
Tell us about him.
Well, Alf Annabellini, he's a very old dear friend of mine that I met him when I was recording the Caramel record when I was signed to Geffen, and the Leisure World records. I worked with Alf as he came in did some of the engineering and mixing on some of those projects. So we formed a friendship. And we often say that we share a brain because sometimes he'll finish off my sentence or vice versa. And we have a very like-minded thought process of how we like to work. So as I mentioned to you, we came up with this concept, like, why don't we just write for a rainy day and just start sticking ideas away? And why don't we see if we can find a great vocalist? Didn't have to be female, could be a male vocalist, and maybe start a project with them and base it around them. And so that early thought process of writing for a rainy day, we pulled a lot of ideas out of there, Ken, for this Envy of None project. We had a folder of songs that we were just storing away like squirrels with nuts,
Right. And there's one other guy on the album that I think a few people have heard of. It's nice to see him back into music after so many years.
Yeah, if you're talking about that guy named Alex Lifeson,
Yes.
Never heard of him, don't know who he is. But yeah, like I'm going to be honest with you, man. There's so many days I just pinch myself going, how did this end up? How am I actually even collaborating with Alex? I worked with him for many years when I was over at their label as their A&R guy. And part of their management team, but I never thought I would be collaborating with him in this type of a way. But, as you said, seeing him active again and writing and being creative is a real special. That's, for me, I know this sounds, wholesome or whatever, but just knowing that he was part of that ride that took him through the difficult chapter of the ending of Rush and losing Neil and everything. And he's my friend. So I loved the fact that he was playing again. And I've noticed that the Rush community and the fans have really embraced that. They're like, this is so great to see Alex being busy again. Not so much, this doesn't sound like Limelight. Of course, there's a core group of fans who are like, this is nothing like Rush and I don't like it. And they're obviously, that's cool if they feel that way, but this was not written to be a follow-up for Rush. This is Alex approached this in a very non-Rush way. He he sculpted his guitar tones and had a different journey and a different thought process. And so I love the fact that the Rush fans have championed that part and are just happy to see him creative again, because I love it.
It's fantastic. And one thing in the bio that I read, the last song, I'm sorry, I'm bad with names.
Yeah, Western Sunset.
Western Sunset is a tribute to Neil, is it not?
Yes, yes. Well, I've had the luxury of doing quite a few interviews with Alex since this thing has started, and I can tell you firsthand that the story behind that was when he learned of Neil's sickness, and we all knew that it was terminal. The Rush family and the management company, we all knew maybe 3 years out about Neil's sickness. So there was quite a lot of visits back and forth from Toronto to California, both from Geddy and Alex and Ray Daniels. And our camp would go out and visit Neil and check in on him. I had a few really great visits with him as well. But on one of Alex's visits, he went to Neil's place in Santa Monica, and they were sitting on the balcony watching a sunset, and lots of beautiful trees around, and laughing and joking, like when Geddy and Alex and Neil are together, they're like the Three Stooges. If you've seen the documentary, these guys are like they're like three blood brothers, right? So Alex took that moment away and said it was very peaceful and serene and very calming, and he went away and he wrote this instrumental. When he asked me to play bass on it, he did not tell me that this was inspired by Neil or his visit with Neil, and I'm glad he didn't, because it's quite emotional for me to listen to it now. But I ended up playing fretless bass on that track, and it was a fretless bass that Geddy had given me as a present, so it went full circle. But not only is it a beautiful tribute to Neil, I think it's a gentle, very peaceful musical interlude that speaks of Neil's personality. Neil was a gentle, peaceful guy, and I think after you've digested that entire record of Envy of None, where you're just pummeled with information, this is a nice aperitif to just sit back and relax and end the record with, and it gives you some breathing room. And Alex was very responsible for coming up with the sequence of the record, and very much wanted to have that as the last song. And we all agreed. I think it's a nice little, final touch.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful way to end it. Oh, that was such a sad day. I mean, right now I'm just in my office. I'm just looking. I've got a picture of Neil Peart up on the wall, and it's just kind of that. It just gives me kind of, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Well, you can't help but you can't help but be nostalgic, and you can't help but be thankful about the amazing music that band gave to all of us. I'm a big Rush fan. I think the first time I saw them was at the Massey Hall when they recorded All the World's a Stage. So I go far back with them, and having the luxury of working with them and then meeting all of them. And Neil was a really special guy. He was such a classy dude, and he was so eloquent with his words, but just kind and generous and soft spoken. So, like I said, this track is quite a fitting tribute. And we really didn't know where the inspiration came from until we had finished the record, and then Alex shared the story with us, and we were like, "Wow, that's pretty powerful."
Very powerful. And you mentioned that you played a fretless on this. That was a gift from Geddy. What else did you play? I'm a bit of a gear nut.
Are you? Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I love talking gear. I got to scratch the itch for bass guitars on this. I played my 8-string bass. I have an 8-string that was made by Lato in Toronto. I played that in old strings. I played my Rickenbacker 4003 in Look Inside, and I distorted it and put it in stereo left and right. I brought out my 1982 BC Rich Mockingbird bass that was on the tour with me, with going back as far as Judas Priest. Obviously, there's quite a lot of Fender Precision. Those are my kind of go-to basses. But in addition to the electric basses, I played a lot of keyboard bass on it, and some Moog synthesizer style bass that I felt was really appropriate. And as a musician, I would kind of go, okay, I'm a little bit bored of playing bass guitar. I might see how keyboard bass sounds on this track, right? So I think that's where people start saying, oh, that reminds me of Depeche Mode or Nine Inch Nails. And I love those bands, and I love Rammstein, and there's an electronic element to Envy of None. And I think the keyboard bass and some of the keyboards are making people feel that's, I recognize that vibe, I recognize that sound. But the beautiful part of working at home, on this, Ken, was that nobody was producing us. We didn't have a record label. We didn't have a manager. We didn't have anybody behind my shoulder going, don't play that note under there. You should play a different note. Don't use that bass guitar. We just did whatever we wanted. And once we were happy, it got sent out to everybody else. So I just turn around and go, yeah, like I got my guitars over there. I'd be like, yeah, I think I want to play that one, right? So I had a lot of freedom on this. All of us did. We had a lot of freedom, and everybody checked their ego aside, and we just worked really well. And whatever ideas were resonated with everybody, that's what we ended up using.
Nice. You just mentioned Judas Priest. Mm-hmm. I just spoke with Ian Hill last week.
Nice.
Yeah, and sorry, he's kind of, to me, he's like the king of the 18th or 16th note, right? He's like the guy. And I was asking him about the role of a bass player in a band, and it's pretty obvious when you're in a rock band, hold the bottom end and keep the rhythm going. But in music like this, Envy of None, how did you have to change your approach or your style? Because it is quite different.
It is, and it's a great question. And if Ian is the Earl of 16th notes, I like to say I'm the Earl of 8th notes. Between me and our guy in AC/DC, his name is escaping me right now.
Cliff Williams.
Yeah, Cliff, right?
Yeah.
And I've always approached that, like the older rock Coney Hatch stuff or anything that I've done, exactly the way you said. Like my role as a bassist is to hold down that bottom end and work with the drummer, and we're the machine of the song. We're the freight engine on it, right? The thought process behind Envy of None, because the songs are so sparse. Well, I wouldn't say they're sparse; they're quite dense in production. But these aren't, with the exception of a few songs like "Never Said I Love You" and "Liar." For the most part, they're very, I guess, they're soundscapey. So the bass had a lot of room in it, and there is some rhythmic stuff going on, but there's a lot of padding underneath it, a lot of whole note, vibey stuff going on. And Alex and I had a long conversation about both of our parts, whether it be guitar or bass. And it was really to serve the song first, not so much listen to me, listen to what I'm doing. I've now it's the bass guitar's time to take over. Other than, the look inside, I feel that I got to step out a little bit. And that's almost like somebody said to me, it reminds me of Battle Scar or Pink Floyd or something like that. So I did get to stretch my wings a little bit on look inside, but for the most part, trying to hold down the bottom end and create a nice lower harmonic level for everybody to layer their stuff on top of,
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I always found Alex to be the ultimate team player.
Very much.
He's in a band with arguably the greatest drummer in rock history and arguably one of the greatest bass players in history. I always thought he was just the team guy that just kept everything together. So it doesn't surprise me that you said, egos were put aside and you just...
Yeah. You're absolutely right. With Rush, you've got two very big personalities with Geddy Lee and Neil Peart, not that different than John Entwistle and Keith Moon, so the guitar has to become the glue to keep it all together. And Alex, in a couple of interviews that I've done with him, has been pretty vocal about that, saying that, when there's intricate parts going on around you, it's not time to get busy. It's time to glue it all together. So I tried, I wouldn't say I tried intentionally to underplay, but I really tried to serve the song. If the song didn't call for a big bass part or movement or anything, especially on Alex's stuff, in Western Sunset, I was very cautious of laying a nice backdrop for Al's guitars on it, and same with Spy House. Spy House felt a little funky to me, so I had this pedal that's called the zipper pedal, and it's an envelope filter. So the harder you hit it, it opens up a filter like a wah, so like a wah, like a funk thing, right? So I ended up playing that, and I said, "Is it too much?" I played through this pedal; it kind of sounded funky to me, and he said, "No, I like it." So I had a little bit of fun, but for the most part, I really wanted the vocals to be the feature on this, and I think Maiah did an amazing job.
She absolutely did. Now, this is kind of a weird question, but is this a band in that you're going to do more stuff, or is this kind of a let's see what we can do and then move on to something else?
Well, a little bit of the latter in terms of it was more of a project. Ken, we put it together and there was never any real discussion about touring or should we go out and shop a record deal or what do we do, and it just kind of, it's an overused phrase, but it all happened organically. It just started to grow and grow and grow. And before we knew it, we had 11 songs. So there is absolutely an interest to do an Envy of None. A second record. We all had a great time working together, so that we've already been discussing that. And then the label that we signed with in the UK, Snapper, has first right of refusal for a second record. So I think the intentions are to continue. And if the right opportunity came around for a handful of shows, we would look at that. But neither Alex or myself is in any hurry to get back out on the road, especially Alex after playing for over 40 years. And I did my fair share of gigs too, Ken. So not super anxious to get back out in a bus and hotels, motels, but we are proud of this, and we do think it would be fun to try to bring it to the stage, but there's no real concrete plans yet about that.
Okay. And now a couple questions about the band. Envy of None, where did that name come from?
We had a name that we just kind of tacked on to it as a working name, and we were calling ourselves Middle of Nowhere for quite some time. And it was because I said to Maiah, "Where do you live?" "You live out in Portland, Oregon." "It sounds like that you're in the middle of nowhere outside of Portland." And she goes, "I like that name," right? So Alex's lawyer, who also played on this record, David Quinton Steinberg, he had his own band called The Mods, and he played with Stiv Bators and the Dead Boys. He said, "Andy, you better do a name search. You're going to have to, copyright the name or whatever." So we did a name search and found out there was like 5 other bands called Middle of Nowhere. And we're like, okay, back to the drawing board. And I went, "Damn, David, we're going to have to come up with a name." And he said, "I got a name for you. I've had a name stuck aside for quite some time, and it's Envy of None. What do you think about that?" And I immediately liked it, Ken, because it didn't feel like it was a heavy metal band or a pop band or anything. It's like Envy of None. What is this? And the artwork, same thing. You look at it, you go, what is this? So he had that name stuck aside, and it was a quote from I believe, a Roman philosopher named Ovid. And the quote ends up at the very last line is, "And you will be the envy of none." And with Alex's sense of humor, he kind of liked that. He said, "Cool, we're going to be the envy of none. We're going to work toiling away at home here." But we just liked it. It instantly resonated with us.
Now explain the artwork. To me, it kind of reminds me of an old Lucille Ball
yes. Yeah.
episode, the chocolate episode.
The chocolate episode. You're right. The uniform does feel, I believe, that's funny you brought that up. Her and Ethel were working and eating all the chocolates. I think I remember seeing that in the episode. Right. But no, what happened was I stumbled upon this photographer by the name of Eli Rezkala, and I found his stuff online. He has a company called Plastic, Plastik, and they're based in Lebanon. And I was just completely enamored by his photography. Very stark, very clean, crisp, very almost, instantly eye-catching, which is the part that I liked about it. Going into a record store and flipping through records and pulling up a cover and going, "Whoa, what is this?" And sometimes I'd buy records not even knowing what it sounded like, just because I love the artwork. And Alex and myself and Maiah and Alf, we started talking about the album covers that we love, like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, or Houses of the Holy, or even, with our cover, when we saw the two ladies on there, we were like, this is almost like Roxy Music, Private Life with the two girls on there or something, right? So we contacted Eli and asked him if we could license the artwork and if we could change it a little bit, because his original photograph had these luxury ladies' purses on the trays, and our art director swapped them out for pills. It was like, do you want a blue pill or do you want a blue pill? And we were like, we wanted to get people's wheels turning, but it was really the stark imagery and the clean, crisp style that we loved, that we felt was immediately eye-catching and get your attention on it. Doesn't really say anything. It's not a commentary of what's inside on the vinyl. It's just a piece of art, a beautiful piece of art. We love it.
It's a cool picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you've been in this business.
I remember that one.
You've been in this business a long time. You've released a bunch of albums. What does it feel? What's the feeling like, the lead up to the release date?
Yeah. Well, with this one, it's a little bit different, because all of my other projects and all of my other bands that I've been in were very traditional in that you have a manager, you have a booking agent, you've got an A&R guy, you've got a label, you go in, you start writing, you schedule, you record, you finish it off, you release it, you go tour, and it's very much a cycle, and then rinse and repeat, and you do it again. And the anticipation of how are people going to accept this? Are they going to like it? Is always there, Ken. You're hoping that the music you created, you like it, but at the same time, you're like, I wonder if people will dig this stuff. And so there is still that part of it, but this ride is very interesting because it's so different that I'm almost just sitting back in my chair watching it and reading and looking at the odd reviews going, wow, people are liking this, And so the expectations were set fairly low. We hope people like it. Let's see where this goes. But it does, we made these 10 or 11 little children, and they're out there now, and they're going to leave the nest. So we've got our fingers crossed and waiting to see, hopefully people enjoy the music, because we had a blast making it.
And I imagine it's a little different too, because back in the day you had records and cassette sales, but now you've got so many different streaming sites, plus vinyls, plus, are you releasing on vinyl and CD as well?
Well, yes, because this label that we signed with, Snapper K-Scope, they're very much into that really cool old school packaging. So we've got a deluxe version that just arrived at my house and is amazing. It's got a slip case. It's got blue vinyl. You open it up. It's a double gatefold, 11-page booklet. You pull out the CD that has 2 CDs in it, one which is the record and then the other bonus content. And then that we're not doing cassette. So I know you're sad about that.
Yeah,
but we are. But obviously, it's available on all the DSPs like Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and stuff like that. But the vinyl part's very big for us, and there's collectible blue vinyl, white vinyl, and black vinyl. So anybody that's into that stuff, we spent a lot of time, especially our director Richard Beeching, on the packaging. So it turned out really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get the vinyl actually. I only have the what was sent from your publicist, so
yeah,
that's all I've heard. I'd like to hear the actual.
It's pretty honestly, like, I've been involved in a lot of stuff, but especially the deluxe edition of this one looks so cool. The printing on it, and it's high. Everything's very high quality on it. So I think if I was to make a recommendation for you or anybody listening, go for the deluxe version. You won't be sad. Got a lot of extras on it.
And this just kind of popped into my head, but all the shitty news that's going on these days, it's actually nice to have a nice soothing record that's you can just kind of sit back and relax and kind of take your mind off of all the garbage that's going on in the world right now. Well,
Ken, thank you for saying that. There is, I agree with you. There's a bit of an escape vibe into this. It's a bit of a headphone record. You just put it on and get lost in it. There are moments when we flex our muscle, like a song like Enemy, and even the lyrical content of that is quite topical going with what's going on in Ukraine. But I do believe that music is for the soul. There's a real healing element to listening to any of your favorite artists. And I think this one takes you on a ride for sure. There's a journey on it, and if you're into extracurricular activities, grab some wine or spark up a fatty and put your headphones on and go, man, because there's some good stuff going on this ear candy wise, you know, lots of panning, and we spent a lot of time mixing it, and we had a lot of fun with it, dude.
Yeah, and for everybody who's listening to this, you know, like Andy said at the beginning, it's not Rush, it's not Coney Hatch, but it's definitely pleasing to listen to. So, you know, open your mind a little and don't expect Limelight or La Villa Strangiato, you know, it's not that.
No, it isn't, but it's quite a journey.
It is.
And for the Rush aficionados, I will tell you this: there is enough identifiable Alex Lifeson on this where you listen to it and go, okay, there he is. There's my guy. There's my guy. The Earl of Eighth Notes is still in there driving some bass for any of the Hatch fans. They're like, where's that driving? You know, there are some driving songs. Put your car in gear and go. You know, Never Said I Love You and a few others. I think have some good rhythms. The song called Dumb is very almost like a Euro dance song or something, but it's a ride, and I think it's a fun ride. It's a sonic audio trippy ride. That's why I'm encouraging better living through chemistry with you know, cannabis is legal in Canada now. I never smoked pot, but if that's your choice of demons, then go for it, you know. But a nice glass of wine and be a nun and enjoy the ride.
And I have one question about one of the songs, and this question was from my Let's Rock partner.
Okay.
He's a music graduate. He went to university, studied music. He cannot figure out the time signature and Look Inside.
I will tell you, it's 3/4.
3/4.
Yeah, it's so slow. It's deceiving, but it's like a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. It's a triplet feel. So you'll have to tell him. That. And when I presented it to the band, speaking of wine, I was in this studio late one night with a nice bottle of red, and you know, just having fun, and I pulled up this groove because I've got a groove library that I usually start when I write songs, and I can control the tempo, and there was something really hypnotizing about that you know, triplet 3/4 feel on it. And I slowed it down, and it was really sludgy, and we call it our stoner lullaby. And I sent it to everybody, and I said, is this too plotty? Is this too slow? And everybody said, no, we're going to make this like a dream sequence. So that's for your buddy. It's a triplet 3/4 feel.
There you go. Now, one last thing before I let you go.
Yes, sir.
Devastating news last week with Taylor Hawkins.
Yeah.
It's happening too much in the rock world these days.
You know, I have to tell you that any Rush fan out there knows how close the Rush camp was with the Foo Fighters. So got to spend a lot of time around Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins specifically. They were the other guys are amazing guys, but the extroverts in the Foo Fighters are Dave and Taylor. I can only tell you that both those guys are so classy. They, you know, Dave Grohl, being one of the biggest rock stars in the world, has no ego whatsoever. They were always welcoming. They were always upbeat. Taylor Hawkins, his energy and being around him, such a sweet guy. It was intoxicating, and it was almost like you couldn't help but leave the room with a smile on your face after you spent some time with Taylor Hawkins. You know, I got to be part of the team that put together when Geddy and Alex played with the Foo Fighters, and they did YYZ down at the Scotiabank.
Right.
And Taylor was drumming on that. And the funny story was Dave Grohl said, there's no way I'm going to try to play that song, and I am not going to embarrass myself. And Taylor was like, bring it on, you know, and they had a hard time keeping up to him because he was so wired. He was playing it so quickly. Right. But, I really don't know what to tell you, Ken, because I had when I heard about it, I was just in shock. And he's got a beautiful wife and a family with, I think, 3 kids, and it's just so tragic. And I was praying that there wasn't any kind of drugs involved in it until it came out, and you never know until you're walking in someone else's shoes what they're going through. So I don't know why he was indulging in that. I never saw any indication of any of the guys in the foos doing any kind of extracurricular activities there. And it's really tragic and such a bright light, and so saddened by it. I immediately got texts from Getty and Alex just going, Andy, have you heard? And we had a very close relationship with the Foo Fighters camp, and my thoughts and prayers go out to all of them, because that's going to be a tough chapter for them to get over.
Absolutely. And, just a quick story. Years ago, I can't even remember what year it was now, I went to an Alanis Morissette show at Zaphod.
Yeah.
Did you ever play at Zaphod's in Ottawa?
I know, but I've been to shows there, so that doesn't surprise me that she was there. Barrymore's. We used to play a lot more at Barrymore's, yeah. But
right, it was a little bigger, yeah. But she was doing media only, and I was working at a radio station at the time.
Wow!
And I could not take my eyes off this crazy drummer. He was amazing. Unbelievable, and I didn't know who he was. And after the show, I went up and I said, "Dude, you are unreal. Can I get a drumstick?" And, he gave me his drumstick, and
wow.
3 years later, he was in the biggest band in the world.
Yeah.
So we can say
exceptional drummer.
Oh yeah. We could say Canada gave him his start.
I would agree with you. And there was such a love in with the boys in Rush and the Foo Fighters. There was a mutual respect. And as you know, Dave and Taylor inducted them into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they were considered family. I know Getty and Alex took it very, very hard, the news. Yeah, it's tragic, buddy.
It is. And we'll see what happens with the band, but I'm hoping, that's a couple big losses for Dave Grohl.
Yeah, I know. Some big boots to fill there. Something tells me Dave's going to be a rock and roll soldier and carry on, but they're going to need some time to mourn that one. That's a big loss for that camp. It
is, absolutely. Well, thanks for your words on that. That was nice to hear that, from an insider who's been around.
Very special guy. And maybe, I don't know, maybe he just got into a vibe that night, and it was just like he played with such an intensity that there might have been a lot of wear and tear on his body anyway, from how just the sheer, like if you ever went to a Foo Fighters show, and as you said with the Alanis, like how long can you do that before your heart was like, hey, time out? So maybe it wasn't so much the drugs, it might have been the years and years of touring that took its toll on it. I like to think of that. And I don't think about the I purposely stopped reading all the crap online about the drugs that they found, because I want to have a special memory of Taylor, the guy that was so kind and upbeat and happy. That's who I want to remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Thanks for that. So let's just summarize everything here. Envy of None, the new album, coming out April 8th. That's next. I have no idea. Next Friday.
Yeah.
A week and a half. Best of luck with it.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the time and attention that you gave us on this. And anybody that's listening, man, I hope you as Ken said, open your mind up and take a ride with this, because I think you'll be surprised. And there's enough meat on the bones for the Rush fans that I think they'll enjoy this. And the Coney Hatch fans, get used to it. There's a new boss in town, and he's not just going down one road.
It's always nice to see. You could see it with Victor as well when Alex released that. It was very
totally
different from Rush. So it's kind of nice to see that he's doing all these different things, whatever
Agreed.
is going on with him. And I think
it's part of the ride of being a musician, man. Like he's stretching on this, and he's having a great time.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.
Andy, thank you so much for this. This was awesome.
No problem, Ken. My pleasure. And thank you for your patience on it. And glad we finally connected. And have a great one, buddy. And hopefully if we're in Ottawa, we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Okay. Cheers, buddy. Take care, Ken.
You too.
Ciao, man.